could he have left that off? You know, it is so astonishingly stupid that you begin to think, is there something else at work here? Is someone actually plotting to make this party, this leadership, this particular prime minister fail? How can they have left that off?
Isabel Oakeshott is taking brutal shots at Starmer and he has nowhere to run to.
Modest things, and those with the integrity, who have their main focus on their constituents. In this case, Starmer's constituents are, by the way, the entire nation. That's the job he signed up to do. Do not blithely accept hospitality.
What incredibly stupid decision did Starmer take that has left everyone baffled, especially Isabel?
The worse things get and the tougher it becomes to live a good quality of life in modern Britain, the more hope there is that there is a sort of uprising. And I don't mean literally.
I'm with you so much.
But, you know, that people will rise up and choose something different.
Isabel's message is clear, and it's one that resonated with the British public.
His blueprint for the next 5 years, number 10 denies it's a reset. We've got 6 milestones, 5 missions, 3 foundations, 7 pillars for growth. Are you as confused as I am?
Can I just add one figure? 0 chance of turning this around. 0. Because there was a glaring omission in all of that, which is immigration.
Starmer came into the government after promising a bunch of things. He called them manifesto pledges, and to nobody's surprise, he failed to deliver on each and every single one of them. Now, since everyone is beyond furious at this shameless betrayal, Starmer is trying to rebrand his Labour government with new promises. Will we ever see these milestones be reached? Well, it doesn't really matter since nobody's buying the new nonsense Starmer is selling. The height of being tone deaf is when Starmer willingly ignores what we all really want, an end to this immigration nonsense.
How could he have left that off? You know, it is so astonishingly stupid that you begin to think, is there something else at work here? Is someone actually plotting to make this party, this leadership, this particular prime minister fail? How can they have left that off? Because talk to anybody, and I know probably I'm in a bit of an echo chamber. A lot of people that I talk to are very, very passionate about what's happening to our country as a result of the loss of control of our borders.
Astonishingly stupid is a huge understatement, but Isabel has a point here. Is the whole Labour Party delusional? A person with any semblance of sense would understand that what Starmer is doing is bound to fail. It only goes to show that be it the advisors or the ministers in the Labour Party, they're all painfully out of touch with reality. Failing to do anything about immigration might end up being the biggest reason why Starmer is thrown out of government. It's almost as if Starmer wants to lose voters. Whatever snake oil Starmer is selling, the Brits aren't buying it anymore, and his robotic demeanor doesn't do him any favors either.
He just doesn't get it, does he? And it just is extraordinary how bad he is. And I don't know whether you have any insight into this, Peter. What is going on with his advisors? You know, why isn't there anyone better around him?
Starmer deserves an award, not for being a good prime minister, but for his sheer incompetence and out-of-touch thinking. For some baffling reason, the Prime Minister of Britain forgot to address the biggest problem that plagues Britain at the moment. Isabel is just as dumbfounded as the rest of us, and it shows. Starmer is giving a masterclass in making sure he never wins an election again, and that every single Brit hates him with a passion. But then again, even the things he did promise, he is failing miserably to deliver on them. All the while, the mainstream media is working overtime to save shreds of Starmer's credibility intact by spinning false narratives.
Take it a step further and say that the milestones will go into millstones and then become political tombstones unless something really, really big and dramatic happens. I just don't know how it can be this bad, and I don't want it to be bad. I really don't. And there are a few things that, you know, even though those of us that really are ideologically fundamentally opposed to where Keir Starmer and his party are coming from, could have had some hope for.
Isabel, like the rest of us, is a patriot. All of us want what's best for this country, but sadly, Starmer and his gang is anti-British. Everything they've managed to do has made everything worse, and life more miserable for everyone. Nobody would oppose the reforms Starmer is proposing, even if they were ideologically different, as long as it brought benefit to his nation. Sadly, growth and prosperity don't come under Starmerism, so Keir won't get any more chances. We all know these milestones will crash and burn, and so will Starmer's government.
This government has put restoring the NHS's ability to provide everybody with a decent standard of care at the heart of its agenda. But I just actually don't have any faith that it's going to happen. And I think that that is central to Labour's success. If they can demonstrably make the NHS deliver better, then they have a little bit of hope of picking up a bit in the polls.
Not everything Labour proposes is a dumpster fire. Some of the policies are actually good and would benefit all of us. As Isabel points out, they're simply incompetent to even deliver on the things that the public supports. Starmer talks a big game about fixing the public health sector by shoveling funds into the NHS. To nobody's surprise so far, it has been nothing but an utter mess. If they somehow manage to fix this ridiculous system, the Brits might just be willing to give them another chance. But will Starmer finally get his act right and push the party towards competence? For starters, they could revert the decision of axing the winter fuel allowance.
So she's got farmers coming at her from one side of the Treasury building and pensioners on the other side. Isabel, 100,000 set to be in poverty. I mean, who'd have thought it?
Well, I think she'll be much more worried, or the wider party will be much more worried about the pensioners. You know, the farm, I think there is huge public support for them, but in the end, you know, however much you can explain to people that £1 million threshold is not actually that much for a farm, you know, many voters will just hear the word £1 million, won't they?
Of course.
The pensioners are being crushed by this government. And that's just one demographic. Starmer and Rachel Reeves are after every single working class Brit. Doesn't matter if it's the farmers or the pensioners, this government will stop at nothing short of completely ruining the economy of this nation. Since they're already making everything miserable in social issues, why would they just stop there and not bring down the economy as well? The number of people they'll push into poverty alone is astonishing, but what's worse is how many will end up dying as a result of Starmer's decision to scrap the winter fuel allowance.
We're already having a very cold snap of weather. It's only November. There will be some really awful tales about how this has impacted people who would naturally be Labour voters. I think that when the history books are written about what went terribly wrong with this government very, very quickly, this will be one of the key things. I thought that they would U-turn on this.
We're not even that far into the winter and it's already quite cold. Countless pensioners are suffering and the number will only go higher unless Starmer decides to take a good U-turn for once. He goes back on every single positive promise he has made, but is being stubborn when it comes to freezing the pensioners. Just wait till the horrifying stories start coming out, and people will rightfully blame the new government for having blood on their hands. They are knowingly going ahead with this delusional scheme, even though their own data is projecting around 4,000 deaths. The excuse they use to do all of this is just as pathetic, and nobody's believing them anymore.
Honestly, nobody believes them when they wittering on about this 20 billion black hole, because they can easily find many, many billions to spend elsewhere, can't they? And there would have been ways of making up that alleged shortfall, which were not so punitive on the people who can least carry that burden.
Isabel is not holding back. When she's not calling Starmer stupid, she's demolishing all his claims. The best part is that she's not wrong. The supposed £22 billion black hole has been debunked, but even if it was real, Starmer should have dealt with it in a way that didn't put thousands of pensioners at risk of starving. Just scrap one of the dozen foreign funding plans he has instead of punishing the people who are the most vulnerable.
But unfortunately, this has just been so blunt, the way this is done. And there will be older people who suffer seriously. And can you imagine the first tale of an elderly person dying of hypertension because they were afraid to turn the heat on? I virtually guarantee it will happen. And that is a heavy thing to have on Rachel Reeves's shoulders.
Starmer and Rachel Reeves will have to answer for all of this. The people they were supposed to protect are the ones that are in danger, and Labour created this miserable situation to begin with. Starmer's priorities are horribly misplaced, and that only goes to show how delusional he is. Does he think this will actually help anyone? The money that he's saving by freezing the pensioners is nothing compared to the money he's burning by investing in useless green energy schemes. These political blunders are to be expected from someone like Starmer. Sir Keir, who preaches integrity and transparency, has neither of those qualities, as his recent scandal exposed everything.
Since 2019, our dear socialist leader has accepted more freebies, more gifts than any other MP in all of Parliament. This, of course, includes what we already knew, that he took £20,000 worth of suits and fashionable glasses from Labour donor Lord Wahid Ali. Last weekend it emerged that his wife, Victoria Starmer, took £5,000 worth of free dresses.
Another day, another scandal for Starmer, and this one is huge. The guy who preaches integrity and transparency turns out to be the one who has received the most freebies out of everyone. It's utterly shameful and appealing that Starmer can be such a hypocrite with a straight face. That might be because he's convinced that he has done nothing wrong, and Isabel puts him in his place for that.
So if he's netted 300 grand, then he's not short of a few bob to buy his own clothes and his own suits. And I don't know what his wife's earned, but he keeps telling us she works for the NHS, so she's got some income, at least of her own. And yeah, I'm trying to think how he could have got that tax bill down to 25%. I mean, even if he were using, if he's got his own limited company and he was trying to take advantage of every possible kind of expense, I still don't see how he would have got it down that low.
That's right. Our dear Prime Minister earned almost $500,000 last year, and guess how little taxes he paid on that? I thought Sakir was all for taxes and the supposed broader shoulders bearing the heavy burdens. It seems that there's two tiers to Starmer in every case. The rules that he harps on about don't seem to apply to him. The reality is, this is a huge scandal that Starmer will never be able to wiggle out of. Nobody wants a Prime Minister that's in the pockets of the liberal elites.
I think it's just a shocking look, isn't it? And I think I know how he's going to respond to it, don't you? He's going to go on and on about how meticulous he's been in declaring it, and he'll try to imply that actually plenty of other politicians have taken more than him, but they just haven't been as honest, and how much advice he's taken to stick with the rules. None of that actually matters. It's the overall impression that we now have of a Prime Minister that is feathering his own nest.
Just because Starmer has declared the endless freebies he has gotten does not make the situation any better. He's still a hypocrite, and he is still getting expensive gifts from rich people. Why does he even need those gifts? It's a matter of ethics and principle. A leader of the country should not be doing things like these, and it only damages his reputation further.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter whether the rules were or weren't broken in this case. He's in a great deal of political trouble over it. And it's really very bad for all MPs when a colleague, and in this case, the most senior politician in the land, behaves in this way, because it fuels an impression amongst voters that politicians are all at it.
The entirety of the Labour Party is losing their minds over what Starmer has done. Once Starmer was exposed to be a freebie enjoyer, journalists started digging into the whole party, and it turns out each and every one of them is rotten. Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, all of them have their noses buried in the Lord Ali trough. This is a complete destruction of all credibility that the Labour Party had, and it's only going to get worse from now on.
I just think that this is very corrosive. I don't think it will stop here. I think that now journalists have got a bit between their teeth on this, and they will find other freebies that he's taken. And truthfully, MPs that can afford to minimise the expenses they claim and the things that they take are very well advised to do so.
Journalists are still digging, and Starmer is in panic mode. He's on the verge of having a mental breakdown, and it'll only expose him more, especially because all the ministers are advised to minimize the expenses on public finances and not take any gifts. It's a no-brainer that a leader should be transparent and impartial. Starmer keeps insisting that he hasn't broken any rules, but the reality is clear as day.
Modest things, and those with the integrity, who have their main focus on their constituents. In this case, Starmer's constituents are, by the way, the entire nation. That's the job he signed up to do. Do not blindly accept hospitality worth thousands or even hundreds of pounds, and they certainly don't accept clothes.
Isabel went all out with this one, and the best part is that she's not wrong at all. No matter how much Starmer whines that he hasn't broken any rules, the truth is that he has broken an ethical rule. Starmer has proven that he has no integrity and can be easily bought by the liberal elites. How are we supposed to trust a leader who isn't transparent and doesn't practice what he preaches? What could have Starmer done differently, and does he have any idea of the implications of receiving gifts?
The sensible ones will immediately think two things. First of all, what does this person bearing gifts want from me?
Yep.
And secondly, however tempting these little luxuries might seem, how is that going to backfire on me? How is that going to look when my duty and being paid from the public purse to have this most honoured of positions, my duty is first and foremost to serve the people, not be lavished on gifts as if I'm some kind of emperor.
So far, Starmer has done anything but serve the people. He is too out of touch with reality to understand this very simple point. If someone is sending expensive gifts to him, why would they do it without an ulterior motive? Clearly they are trying to sway his opinion, and that's what it seems like to the public eye. Labour is in damage control mode right now. They claim that this is not a big deal, but they're clearly losing their minds over this scandal.
Grow a backbone and just say what you really think, which is that this is a total nightmare and that he has plunged all his colleagues into an incredibly embarrassing situation. Don't lie to people. Don't pretend you don't have an opinion. We all know what you're really thinking, which is that you're very, very, very angry, to put it mildly, with the Prime Minister for embarrassing the entirety of the government.
Isabel has a clear message to all the Labour ministers claiming that they don't have an opinion on the matter. It's laughable that they're pretending as if nothing happened when their party has lost everyone's respect so quickly. Starmer has turned the Labour Party into a pathetic joke and people are done with him. At this point, is it any wonder that people are demanding his resignation?
I am absolutely with you and the millions of people who think this bloke is a disgrace. He has no plan, he has no conviction, he has no backbone. I don't buy this government at all. It makes me furious with the shambles that was the Tory party. But we cannot fall for the BS that the King is going to get involved. This is not going to change the government. Yes, it will absolutely, Isabel, say to this government, globally and at home, not very popular. It's not going to make any difference though, is it? Come on.
The recent petition that's been gaining an insane amount of traction is a direct message to Starmer and his government. The people are raising their voice and demanding another general election. Sadly, Starmer is incredibly stubborn and there's no way he'll willingly step down. It's only natural. Why would he give up such a huge majority, especially when he knows that he won't ever win another election? What it does achieve is humiliating Starmer and his gang on a global scale. The entire world knows just how disgraceful this government is.
So there are about 40 million people who are eligible to vote in this country. So unless basically most of them sign it, I can't see it's going to make it actually going to force an election. And in fact, even if the entire adult population signed it, it wouldn't legally force anything. But what it is just a big message, isn't it? It's just a message to this lousy lot about just how much they are utterly despised by how many people.
Isabel puts it perfectly. It's a message to this government that their appalling actions are despised by everyone in this country. Unfortunately, the petition can't force them out since there's no legal backing behind it, but there is some hope. The petition has put Starmer and his gang into crisis mode. They are running around trying to rebrand their government and regain some popularity. Who knows, maybe Starmer will develop some sense and stop ruining this nation.
Because everything's just so negative, isn't it? And, I don't want to be negative all the time. I don't want to be constantly complaining about the direction our amazing country is going
But that's
in.
the point, but we talked about this last week. I don't believe that we have a leader or a government that are particularly keen on this country or even love this country and certainly not proud of this country, because all they do is bend to the knee at any foreign court that creates a law that is against, in my mind, most of what's good about this country.
Believe it or not, everyone had high hopes from this government. What they promised was good, but they can't seem to achieve any of it. Labour's plan is that they have no plan at all. They made grand promises to win over supporters and get the votes they needed to win the election. In reality, it was all a lie to fool people into believing that Labour would save this country. Everyone gave Starmer the benefit of the doubt, but we've all been sorely disappointed. Starmer has no backbone or conviction, and it shows.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit sort of depressed by the Mail on Sunday front page, which gave Keir Starmer a free advert to say the square root of nothing about cracking down on benefits. I mean, he wrote a really lame article in which he weakly kind of said, oh, no more business as usual. That's not good enough. You know, we want to hear something much more robust than that.
The mainstream media covers for Starmer an awfully lot. They continually give him chances to reframe the narratives with lame articles that have no real substance. Despite all that, Starmer continues to fail miserably. All we want is honesty and a reasonable plan explained in a way that assures the people that Starmer isn't completely out of his depth.
I have a growing hope that the worse things get and the tougher it becomes to live a good quality of life in modern Britain, the more hope there is that there is a sort of uprising. And I don't mean literally.
I'm with you so much.
But, you know, that people will rise up and choose something different, because we can't go on like this.
The lies are being exposed every day and people are waking up. They're seeing this government for the frauds that they are, and they're rapidly losing all support now. The key here is how many chances that have been given to this government and how they've wasted each and every single one of them. People have had enough, they're sorely disappointed and have lost all trust in this government. Starmer and his cronies have been stripped of all credibility, and every word that comes out of their mouths is automatically doubted.
It's because, as I said to somebody earlier, I could say I don't like your jumper, and I do like your jumper, by the way, but I could say that. You could put the phone down, get offended and phone the police, and I could get actually, you know, approached by whoever, but some poor old woman who's had her house nicked, you know, burgled, she's not going to get a visit. The world's gone nuts, mate.
We don't need a review of non-crime hate incidents. We just need to ditch them. That's it. I've done the review. I've saved a load of time, a load of money. That's it. Just ditch them.
Of course, Isabel isn't actually calling for violence, but she had to clarify since Starmer hates free speech and would immediately crack down on anyone who dares say a bad word. In fact, the crackdown on free speech has gotten so bad that everything you say or do online is being monitored. How insecure is this government to take such drastic measures?
Because it just reflects everything that all of us are feeling. You know, as he says, how can this country carry on being governed in a way that is so out of step with what the silent majority feel? All this nonsense about, you know, let's pay billions of pounds in reparations for the Industrial Revolution or
whilst giving away the Chagos Islands. Brilliant.
It's just nonsense. And the vast majority of people, I'm confident that if we polled them, the vast majority of people would want nothing to do with any of that.
Labour has always been a bunch of snowflakes, and it's more evident now than ever before. They're so terrified and insecure of the common Brit raising their voices that they're taking insane measures to censor everything they can. Which is all the more reason why you should raise your voice and hold these people accountable. That's something you can do simply by liking this video and subscribing to the channel so that Starmer is given a harsh reality check.